When you wake up in the morning today in your life, what just makes your heart beat out of your chest and just sing out loud for the day that's ahead of you?
That's such a great question. Um, well, in the spring and summer, I wake up to the birds singing. I'm a very light sleeper, and I wake up to the birds singing outside my window. I love it. And sometimes they start at like quarter after 4 in the morning, in the spring, and it lights me up. I just feel so lucky to be alive. I really, really love that. And then I usually run downstairs, let my dogs out, and they come and jump in bed because I run back up and I jump into bed, and then they're bouncing around my head. And I just love that. I love the feeling of being in bed with my sweetheart, with the dogs rolling around on top of us, and even if it's 4 o'clock in the morning, um,
You said
usually get up.
dogs. How many dogs do
Yeah,
you have?
we have three.
Mm.
And two of them are actively running, and our third one is 17 and a half, and he doesn't run much anymore. Yeah. He doesn't jump on the bed either. So he sleeps. He's like an old man. He just kind of sleeps 24 hours a day.
Yeah, well, 17 and a half is like what, like 99 years old in real life,
Yeah,
human
crazy.
years.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. What is your, well, let me, for people listening, I did a short intro, but every Friday, well, this is, if anybody listened to my episode with Nicole DeBral, I graduated my meditation teacher training with her, and Lisa was another person in our class. And me, Nicole, myself, Nicole, Lisa, and two others, sometimes three others, we get together every Friday at noon and just discuss different topics around meditation. So we go
Mhm.
deep into not just like the practice, but different things, different topics. So it's really, I'm really glad to have you on. Can you tell everybody here right now what your meditation practice looks like, Lisa?
Yeah, well, since our teacher training, so we were sort of tasked with doing meditation twice a day. I wake up in the morning, so after I get my dogs settled, I do a meditation. I usually do a guided meditation. A lot of mornings I use yours, Justin, and I love the familiar voice. I love thinking, oh, there's my buddy, my meditation buddy. So I usually do about a half hour meditation, and then our other task is to do one sort of at the close of the day. And I find that a little bit more difficult to figure out when to put that into my calendar, into my schedule. But I try to at least do a meditation, a gratitude meditation as I'm getting into bed, like sort of settling down before I go to sleep.
Ah, nice.
Yeah.
What is
I'm
it?
working on twice a day.
What's that?
I'm working on twice a day.
Yeah. So what is it? Uh, I've had a couple guests talking about how important twice a day is, and we worked with David G, and he mentioned that. And we're actually, when I was with him in the class, I never even heard twice a day and how important it is, to your well-being and a person as a teacher. Why is that second part hard to get in? Because I have difficulty too. What do you think it is? What do you think the hardest? Because I don't know.
I think it's just like fitting it into a schedule. I I'm actually right now working two jobs. So I'm working a day job and then I work in the evenings. I'm a therapist. I see clients in the
Yeah.
evening. And so I usually finish that up about 8 o'clock at night, and then I cook dinner, and then I clean up. We clean up, and then I would like to spend some time with my sweetheart. And it's like the days just I run out of time, I guess is what it is.
Yeah.
And so I've tried to schedule it. He says even like David G says maybe late afternoon. Well, I start seeing clients around 4 or so, but I end my day job and start seeing clients.
Right.
So I just say really, really, really have a hard time with it. Um,
I think that because I do too, and it's funny because I talk all the time about how important it is for balancing our life to have that time of stillness, right?
Yes.
But
Right.
then I say that and then I can't make time for it in the afternoon. Like it's kind of a weird dichotomy there that happens. And then yeah, I don't know. I mean, I throughout the day I will just like, and you guys are great reminders of that, by the way. So recently I messaged the group, and it's a great like group to just talk to about things. And I was like, my son's been getting up way earlier lately, and I haven't been able to get my full meditation in the morning the last few days. And they're like, and you guys, I think it was you, Lisa, or someone was like, 16 seconds, just do 16
Yeah.
seconds over and over. And I'm like, yes, because I don't have to get in my 15 minutes. I can just do 16 seconds, and then maybe later I'll get a full, more of a meditation in. And
Yeah.
yeah, and that's another example of just having like a good group to connect with, or good people around you that are similar minded. So
Oh, for sure. 16 seconds, Justin, I use that. I do use that a lot. And I try to even take a 2 or 3 minute meditation. And I think we judge ourselves then, right? I mean, like, am I getting in that full 30 minutes? Oh, dang, I'm not. And then there's all this self-criticism that comes in and self-judgment. Instead of, all right, here I could fit in a 5 minute meditation. If I walk out and sit on my front porch, if it's a decent day, just to feel grounded. Well, okay, now I'm doing a meditation. Maybe didn't think of it that way, but now I'm doing a meditation. And so finding some forgiveness for ourselves in trying to negotiate all the things that we're trying to negotiate right now, I think is really important. In that, in adding in meditation, is supposed to be non-judgment, right?
yeah, and I know you specialize in that kind of talk in your therapy. Let's take a step back here. I want people listening to get a little background on Lisa Maynard, uh, so that we know exactly, not exactly, but know a little bit about you. So where where did this transition? There's always a shift or a transition, right, where you find mindfulness or find the spiritual path or whatever you want to call it. Uh, how did that come about for you? What changes did you immediately notice in your life? What was going on in your life during that time? Just share that a little bit, and then you can even talk a little bit before that if you'd like to bring us up to speed.
Yeah, sure. So, um, I actually it started back when I did the first 200-hour yoga teacher training, and I'm thinking that was maybe, I don't know, 6 years ago. I can't even remember when I did it, but um, the yoga teacher training, it was so phenomenal. It was so life changing for me, and it included bits and pieces of meditation in the 200 hours. It wasn't a whole lot, but just getting into a yoga mindset, a yoga philosophy, it really was transformative for me. I'm super high energy, super emotional, like zoom, zoom, zoom all the time. My sweetheart says that I'm an adrenaline junkie. So, go, go, go all the time. And what are my things that I've got to get done? And I started yoga to do a different kind of an exercise. So, of course, I did power yoga. Move, move, move. Let's get through this. And
Yeah.
and bulk it up and bush it up and the teacher training made me look inside. There's a lot of inquiry that goes into it and a lot of self-discovery that was just blew me away. And then to start to feel what it feels like to get quiet, to get centered, to get grounded. Um, and so at the end of that, I started to look at meditation a little bit more here and there. Again, being sort of a super high energy person, to sit was like kind of crazy for me. Um, and then I got into the 500-hour teacher training. So I graduate next weekend. Really
Oh,
excited. This
nice. I
actually,
didn't even
yes.
know that. Awesome.
And part of that, we started to do more meditation. So the teacher training brought that in more. And then Breathe and Cindy Weiss brought David G. As one of our teacher trainings for the yoga, and they decided. I think I'm not sure if you were even there at that weekend, but that was where they sort of decided we're going to launch this whole meditation teacher training, and I just felt ready. I felt ready, and it's yeah, again, transformational. It helps me in getting more centered. As I said, I'm not so worried about getting somewhere so fast anymore.
Where are we going, right?
Where are we going and why? Right? What are we doing? And yeah, and so to take the time um, to reflect instead of react.
Mm.
And this has been so great for me in my work with my clients, to help them sort of slow down. A lot of people, I don't know, what you know about therapy, but a lot of people come into therapy and they're like, okay, I need to fix this. I need to fix it now. How do we get it fixed? And can we do this in 3 sessions or less? And
Wow. Then I wasn't I
you know,
wasn't 100% aware of that. I could see that though.
yeah, they have goals, and they don't want to take the time and spend the money, which they totally get.
Yeah.
But so all of these things have sort of come together in my life in a lot of ways to just say, let's get quiet, let's get still, let's get calm. Um, when you're having when you're having current events as we are right now, could be a little bit agitating. And to just get into meditation that's about gratitude or peace, um, takes away some of that super agitation that I think is sort of in the atmosphere right now.
Yeah, it's just in there. It's so easy to come across it. It makes so much sense. There's a whole bunch in that I wanted to ask you about. So before we get into your practice, I wanted to ask you, what was, you said that you went through the teacher training. So for people listening, as you can see, one of the ways to really deepen your practice, or even self actualize and become more aware, is to take a teacher training or take some sort of training somewhere, wherever this particular place did Breathe. So that's a great way to deepen your spiritual practice. But can you share with us, like, you mentioned during your 200-hour teacher training, you guys were doing some inner work and you really unlocked a couple things. Can you share with something that you discovered? And then also, when you started doing a daily meditation practice, something else that specific in your life, not just broad.
Okay. Yeah, there are a lot of things. So uh, in one of the practices one day, this was really super impactful for me. We were instructed to write down on a piece of paper that um, somebody who wronged us in some way, somebody who did something that hurt us in some way, and you write that down on a piece of paper, and the whole practice is about forgiveness, and then
Mm.
you write that name on a piece of paper, you put it under your mat, and you do a heart opening practice. So sort of trying to get into the heart space and um, opening that up, and that was kind of cool. Um, I I will say that at the end of the practice, I wasn't really feeling totally forgiving of that person, but um, but I was moving in that direction. Forgiveness is not all that easy sometimes.
Yeah, I just
Um,
had a conversation last night about a couple of things with Catherine. I should call her my sweetheart because that's a great name that you use. Yeah, about there's some things that we were talking about. I'm like, do you forgive me for doing that yet? And she's like, well, I'm still working on it. I'm like, damn it. This is like old stuff.
yeah, well, forgiveness takes time, right? Because we
Yeah.
usually lock in pretty deep. Yeah. So at the end of the practice, so we did that forgiveness, and then And then the teacher said, now, what do you need to ask forgiveness from that person for? So not
Uh,
only forgiving that person, but how do I ask for forgiveness? And I'll tell you, my first reaction was, me? I don't have anything to be forgiven for. That person wronged me. And so, came from a place of, being really annoyed. And then the teacher went on to talk about how we're all in a relationship with whomever, right? And there's always two sides in the relationship. And maybe there's some action or some attitude or something that we had that we were holding that, didn't make the other person do something, but contributed to the dynamic, which I think is so absolutely true when I'm looking at anybody else.
wow.
Harder yourself, right?
100%. You're making my
Yeah,
mind think about a couple of things. That's cool. That's awesome. Yeah, keep going. Wow.
yeah. So I had to work really, really hard to think about what was my role in the dynamic, and then how do I ask that person for forgiveness? And it took me a while. It took me a couple of weeks to sort of, you know, get the nerve to do it.
Mm.
And when I did, that person was like, "Wow, really? Wow, I mean, you're really like owning that you had a role in this dynamic of our relationship and what was going on." And it just, you know, yeah, blew them
That
away.
that you threw me for a loop there. I didn't know that they were actually having you reach out to that person and do that. Like you had
I felt like
what? Oh, did wow? That's takes courage. Wow.
it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. And it felt really good. It felt good. And I'll tell you, the other person said to me, I'm going to have to think about whether or not I'm ready to forgive you.
Oh, interesting.
Which is like, what? Wait, like I just opened up, right? But we're all like in this soup of relationship and, you know, who's hurt and, why we're not measuring who's hurt more. You know what I mean? It's not a competition.
Right.
And the only way to resolve any kind of disagreement or hurt or, is, heartache is to get fragile and vulnerable and open.
Yeah, and that's the
Meditation
oh,
helps with
what did you say?
I think meditation helps you get there.
Yeah, 100%. Because I think that the meditation practice helps you drop because you really need to let go of your pride and your ego to be able to like step into that place to tell that person. So, for because for years I'm thinking about a situation where I had this saltwater coral company, which you know of, and I just what I did was I took responsibility. I just decided to say, okay, here's where I could have been better, but I never thought about saying, hey, so and so, I'm sorry for doing this. Hopefully you'll forgive me. So I'm sorry for, turning a blind eye so much and not being involved as much as I should have so that things got out of hand and and allowed this thing to spiral off. Right. And I never really thought to like that next step. And that's really powerful. That's cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Oh,
Huh.
sure.
uh, and what is you kept saying, I don't even know. Like you said, you have therapy in the afternoon. What's your day job?
So I work for an organization that does, it's an adoption
Oh,
organization.
yes.
So
Okay.
we have therapy. We have a lot of therapists, and I'm part of a national training for adoption competency for child welfare and mental health professionals.
Mm. And what
Getting
does
it
that look
started.
like? What does that involve? Like,
Yeah, it's web-based training. It's all web-based. It's self-paced and it's free. And it's talks about all the training talks about the core issues of adoption, how we can have a better understanding as child welfare practitioners and mental health professionals, so that we can better serve children and families who come to adoption, foster care, guardianship, kinship care, sort of non-traditional relationships, the loss, the grief, the trauma that really is at the core of all of it.
Is this mainly
So,
for like social workers to take this kind of class, or?
yes, mental health, practitioners of all kinds, social workers, marriage and family therapists, and also people who work in child welfare.
Hmm.
So people who work in the Department of Social Services, for instance. And it's nationwide. We've rolled it out across the country, and I think we're in about 30 states so far. So
Wow.
it's been a great experience. Just yeah, raising the raising the awareness and raising the knowledge.
I think that's so cool because obviously, like you said, you've incorporated what you've learned from yoga meditation into this, right? As more to be that much more impactful. And then the same thing with your therapy practice. So
Yeah.
for people listening, and what I love about having conversation is someone to be able to take some things away from it, right? um, you know, you never know what, because again, one of my goals here is to get as many people meditating as possible. So the world can be a lovelier, happier, better place. Not that like we're lovely, happy all the time. I still get very angry and lose it. But do you
We
do
all
you
do.
still have your moments, Lisa?
Goodness, yes. I had one, let's see, last Tuesday night.
Okay, see, okay, perfect. um, so you know, if you when you start this practice, don't go in with an intention to try to fix something, or right. They say, don't go in with trying to accomplish something, right, with an end goal. Just do it, right? Just sit down and be still and just practice, and things will start to unfold. And you probably never even thought when you joined 200 Hour, you were never like, oh, I'm going to learn stuff that's going to help my business, or I'm going to learn start, right?
Oh, never.
Never.
No.
And
No. Actually, when I took 200 hour, what I wanted to do was, those crazy poses that BKS Iyengar is doing.
well, that's that high achievement in you needing to like the thrill, always trying to get it's great.
I'm gonna get my I'm gonna get my foot behind my neck somehow.
You like that pretzel. Okay, show us all how you can do it now.
That's
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
yeah.
Uh,
So
in
yeah, getting someplace was definitely became not the goal.
Yeah. What about I saw on your page that you are I don't know if you want to say expert, or about like trauma sensitive yoga. And there's a lot of people who have gone through trauma. What do you mean by this? What is this?
So, I mean, just how things sort of snowball, right? So I
Yeah.
did the 2 hour training, and I also so I'm a social worker and have a master's degree in social work, and I also have certification in trauma therapy and traumatic stress counseling and other certification. Like, got lots of certifications, and I saw this trauma center, trauma sensitive yoga. I saw a demonstration at a conference I was at, and I thought, gee, that sounds really interesting. So it's a somatic approach to working through trauma, and it's through the Justice Resource Institute in Boston. It was developed by some really amazing people, including Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, who's this super expert in trauma. He's an expert in trauma. I'm not going to claim to be anywhere near what he is. But his center, with David Emerson and a few others, developed this approach to healing trauma, and it's now an evidence-based approach to healing trauma. And it's a very specific kind of yoga. So it's not just trauma sensitive yoga; it's trauma center trauma sensitive yoga. It's been certified as an evidence based therapy. And what it is it has really 3 major components. It's invitational language, choice making, and Um, there's one other one, and it's escaping me. And proprioception. So sort of a shared authentic experience. What's going on in my body and what's going on in your body. So typically you do really small classes of trauma sensitive yoga, and um, the language is it feels clunky at first. Before any cue, before any cue at all, you sort of give an invitation. When you're ready, if you like, you might start to take some deep breaths. So the idea behind it is people who have experienced trauma oftentimes have had no choice in what's going on.
Mm.
And, and then we hold our trauma in our body. And so sort of working the trauma through your body, unlocking it, right? It's again unlocking those things that we hold way deep inside. But you have to give people choice because in a traumatic situation, say like a traumatic car accident or a rape or domestic violence of any kind, a tornado that lifts your house up off its foundation, right? So really any kind of trauma. That we feel like we can't escape. We can't do anything to stop the trauma from happening.
Mm.
And so we go inside and we lock it up. And there's a phenomena called dissociation. We sort of go outside of body because it's the only way we can manage. So the idea of trauma-centered, trauma-sensitive yoga is to reintegrate mind, body, and spirit in coming back. And you have to give people choice. You have to give people room. You have to sort of help them understand what they're feeling in their own bodies. It's a really, really cool intervention.
Yeah.
And again, I've been using it in my therapy practice, whether or not we actually do any yoga moves or poses,
Yeah.
but being really mindful about that.
What I find the most, and that, sometimes I'll listen to meditation and I'll be like, wow, this language is very sensitive to me. Like what I mean was like, they're like, saying or you don't have to, and you just mentioned that, like, what are a couple more cues, I guess. 'Cause I'm curious on the language part of this, right? Because I think that as humans, we can be a little bit more sensitive of our language when we speak to other people, because we never know what they went through, or what they're currently going through. So, what other kind of cues do you use? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so a lot of, like I said, when you're ready, if you like, you might try this or you might try that. You know, this is all up to you. It's your choice to do whichever you would like. You have the option here of making a choice. And if you decide you don't want to do any of it, that's okay too.
Uh,
So just really taking all of the conditions out of it, really.
yeah, it's almost reminds me of like if you're cueing a meditation for not for trauma, I don't know, but somebody closing their eyes might be triggering for
Right.
them, right?
Yeah,
With
yeah.
depending on where they are when they're listening to it. So it's like, when I always say gently close your eyes, and now it makes me think, or if you feel more comfortable, leave them open during the meditation.
Oh, yeah. It's so good, Justin. Because you don't know, if somebody who's had experienced trauma, not being able to see could be really threatening, right? To say something like, get comfortable. Like, well, I'm never comfortable. So it seems like such a, I don't know,
Uh,
it doesn't seem like a tough word, right?
right.
Something like find your seat, find a position that feels useful and accessible in your body today.
Mm,
Feels useful and accessible in your body right now. Yeah. So it's really just being, again, really, really mindful.
is there any
Um,
training? Is there like a book that teaches that? Or because I really would love to dive into that more.
yeah. So the Trauma Center does offer a training. It's pretty intense. It's I think there's one weekend that we did in person, and then we did it was all virtual, and this was before we needed to be virtual because of COVID. But Dave Emerson's book is I've got it somewhere, and I promise you I will get you the name of it. Might just be Trauma Sensitive Yoga, um, but I promise I'll get you the name of
Okay.
it. The author, David Emerson. Um, and the training is through the Trauma Center in Boston. Fabulous training.
Huh.
It's about 300 or 400 hours.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, it seemed it would be intense. There's, I love, I love now taking courses, trainings to, I don't know, I guess level up and be able to impact better, more diligently, more effective, right?
Yeah.
Because you can just say, wake up tomorrow, someone can meditate for 3 months and say, I'm going to teach people to meditate. I know it all. And then they go in and they're using, this, it's just, it's all sloppy, which is fine. Like, you have to start somewhere, but I love being able to keep leveling up. That's, I'm actually going to take a friend with, I believe, Amani. She has an anti-racist course, or anti-racism or
Yeah.
something along those lines. Forget what it's called, but it's very well put. She told me about it, and I'm like, next time you start that, because there's a course that's going on right now. They're going to start it again in a couple months. I'm taking that.
Yeah. That too. I want to be a part of that too.
Yeah, and I'll give you the info. So that it's just that, yeah. So I love hearing about opportunities like that. So we'll put that in the show notes if anybody's interested in that, once you find it, where we can sign up.
And the other thing about it is it's so that training and that languaging has really made me again more mindful in lots of other situations, right? So instead of sort of commanding somebody, which a cue can, I mean, when you're a yoga teacher, when you're a meditation teacher, we're just cueing something up, right?
Right.
We're really offering something. But the language hits people in different ways. I mean, you can certainly see that in lots of areas of life. If you say certain words in a certain way, might sort of impact somebody who's had an experience that you're not aware of. Um, so yeah, I find it to be really useful in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, it's it it reminds me of, I listened to one of my first ones that I ever recorded on this podcast forever ago. Don't go looking for it, because I'm, the you don't want to hear it. But I was like, I want you to now do this, right? And listening to myself say, I want you, I was like, oh, that is so, like, I would never say that now. And before, it was just normal. And again, it's that little tweak in language
Yeah,
that could
yeah,
make a
for sure.
difference.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it could be manipulative too. Like if you're really good at it, you can almost like be dangerously like manipulative to people, which probably isn't a good way to use it.
Yeah, and if you think about it, when you're given a cue and you're part of especially if you're part of a group, or if you're sitting in a one-to-one sessions, so whether it's meditation or yoga or therapy, there's a power dynamic, right? Even if
Mhm.
we really don't want there to be a power dynamic. If you're the teacher and I'm the student,
Mhm.
I'm like, first of all, I want to please you because, that's what we would do as human beings. Don't want to be on the outside. I don't want to not belong. And so there are all these things that are going on that we don't even think about when we're in a position of power, which doesn't seem like I'm not in power when I'm a yoga teacher
Right.
or a meditation teacher or a therapist. But yeah, guess what? I am.
Yeah. And it reminds me, Lisa, of like the big talking big to somebody, or big little, or little big.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
And I think probably as a yoga teacher or a meditation teacher, you're probably going big, right? That's what you're shooting for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Um, It's interesting. Which for people listening is like, like talking up to somebody, talking down to somebody, or like you're talking up and to them, and you're talking up yourself. So you're like staying both in a high energy, right? I guess you could say.
Right.
Yeah. Um, that's awesome. So thanks for sharing that. I had that's new. That's new for me. I've never. And then and then there's all different like you can explore so much. That's what I love about learning this stuff, because when I met with recently a conversation I had around like a diversity meditation,
Right.
right? Which was pretty cool to hear about and realize that there's like that whole subject you can explore too. And now
Yeah.
trauma, and it's really,
Yeah.
really neat. So what do
There's a
you
lot.
currently, Lisa, what are you uh with your patients? What did you do? I guess we call them patients, right? Is that the right term?
Some do call them clients.
You call
I'm
them
not
what?
a
Clients? Okay, clients. Because I said the word patient, I'm like, this not like doesn't sound right. Clients, with your clients, how did you incorporate the mindfulness into, like, what was the difference between your conversations 15 years ago to your conversations you're having now with your clients? Little differences.
Yeah. So yeah, great question. So, well, I think one of the first things I try to do is when they first come into the office, it's stressful. Therapy is stressful. And so I try to get them grounded just to start with. Hey, have a seat, take a deep breath. We don't need to dive into anything right away. Again, when people are sort of feeling they got to be goal oriented, or, I sometimes have clients come in and say, I don't know what to talk about today, and they
Mm.
get anxious about that. Let's just sit for a minute and just see what bubbles up. Um, I I also am way more comfortable with silence, um, giving somebody some time to think about, where do you want to go next? Um, I will do a 16-second meditation. I love, love, love that. I love that I, learned it from David G, and I teach all of my clients. And I tell them it's a 16-second pattern interrupt, because a lot of people get nervous about meditation, right? I can't meditate. That's what I would have said 15 years ago. I can't meditate. I'm not going to do it. I can't, sit
Oh yeah.
still.
Oh yeah, I hear it all the time. I said it too, and I hear it all the time, huh? Yeah.
Right, right. So yeah, so let's just do 16 seconds. Let's try that. Okay, you want to try it again? Okay, let's try that again. So yeah, bringing all those
Cool.
things. Get your feet on the floor. What does it feel like to feel your feet on the floor? I always say, we're on our feet all day long. We use them to get everywhere, right? We use our feet to get everywhere. And how often do you feel them?
Mm.
Unless you're a woman wearing high heels, and trust me, you feel your feet by the end of the day.
I only half get that because I watch Catherine, but otherwise, yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, so those kinds of things, just and it feels so natural because I'm doing it.
Yeah, that's so neat. So a couple things I pick up on there would be, even if you had silence previously, you're a lot more comfortable around it now, instead of the mind
Yeah,
probably being like, oh God, what should I say next? Oh my goodness, what the silence isn't good, right? That kind of whole thing.
exactly. Yeah, they expect me to say something really smart, and
I mean, my therapist, well, I call her my life coach, to be honest, because that's what it's more of. She like I look at her, look up, and I'm guessing that happens a lot with most people that come in to see a therapist. Like, she knows everything. She's gonna be able to like tell me what to do and how to do it and where to be and the right answer. So I get it. That's a lot of pressure.
yeah, yeah. My mother always says, how do you know what to tell them what to do? And I say, I don't tell them what to do. It's just, well, then what do they come to you?
So what do they come to you for, Lisa? What do you
Discovery. You got all
discover?
the answers in. We just need to open up and see it.
Yeah. Can you lead us since we've talked about it several times, I've only had it done once, and that was David G himself many months ago. Can you lead us through a 16-second meditation? So for anybody listening right now, it's coronavirus time, so you're most likely not driving. Just close your eyes and let's do this. It's literally 16 seconds, and you're already listening to the podcast. So let's take a little reset.
Yeah. When you're ready, if you like, you might close your eyes, or you might choose to leave them open. Yeah. And then as you're ready, perhaps you take a long, slow, deep breath in, and maybe count to 4, and then hold that breath to a count of 4, 3, 2, 1. And then as you're ready, if you like, release slowly, gently to a count of 8. And at the end, you feel your rib cage collapse and contract, and every bit of oxygen coming out of your body, so that you have all that room to take another deep breath in. And you might try it again if you like. Hold at the top for 4 seconds. 3, 2, 1. And then slowly, gently.
Thank you.
And then you tell us if there's any shift in your body, any shift in your brain. Does it change anything? It might not. How about you?
It does every single time. Like it just calms me down. It chills me out for whatever, just kind of like a reset. How did everybody, hopefully if you played along, notice how you feel afterwards? And it sounds so simple, but how often do we actually just take that 16 seconds to do that?
And we're breathing anyway, right? And you've got little kids at home. And I would guess that every now and then you get a little, worked up because of something they did, or, who draws on the wall, or who spills milk on the carpet, or whatever. And if we could just take that 16 seconds before whatever has to come next, maybe they need a little bit of redirecting, maybe they need a little bit of correction. But if you could do that 16 seconds and then talk to your child, think about how much more calm you would feel and how much more calm they would feel because they can feel your energy.
Yeah, Lisa, it's a great reminder, because a lot of people listening to this have kids. It's a great reminder that we don't have to, you do not have to, there's no law that says you have to react instantly to something your kids did. Whether it's they've hit their sibling, or they did something, ripped something up, or whatever it is. And it's a great reminder to say, just take that 16 seconds to pay attention to your breath. And that's where I really want to make that a point, because, you can, it's great to just, we do that sometimes, but that's just
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm going to lose it out. Like that's, I don't know. So there's a difference between that and actually like becoming fully aware of the breath going in, stopping at the top, and coming out and following it. Right.
Right.
There's a huge difference between those two things. So if you can do that and then react, everybody's going to be way happier, like you said, and your children will notice too. Yeah, totally. I'll even do it when I feel like a smart ass comment coming out of my mouth to like to my spouse or something. I'll be like, and I'll like follow it. And then it completely changes my mood. And I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I did that. I didn't say that jerk thing I was about to say.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. Because you can't unsay it.
No, it doesn't work every time, or I don't do that every time, because sometimes it just comes out. But
Yeah. Well, hey, you're human. We're all human, right?
yeah. But truthfully, like get the group that we have together, I think we should actually message even more than we do on on our WhatsApp. You know what I mean? Like throughout the week,
Yeah.
just as a reminder. Because when I get that notification, I'm like, my meditation buddies, like reminder to do my second day of the meditation, reminder to breathe, it's really cool to have that. Does that feel
Yeah.
that way for you too?
Our group, I love our group. I am like just, it feels so good. So the discussions that we have, the things that we talk about that I don't talk about with anybody else. I don't know who else I would talk with, about the Eightfold Path and the Noble Truths and the, things that we're sort of diving deeper into, which is really cool. But whenever I see anything from anybody in our group, and everybody shares so many great things, but from memes to websites to podcasts to interesting articles to read.
Mhm.
Uh, I feel so much love. I do. I
Yeah,
just feel so good.
I'm with you on that. What it's yeah, and our man, we should. I'm gonna get messages after this, like, "Who can I join your group? Can I join your group?" Yeah, we're gonna charge 10 grand a piece to join our group. All right, it's a 10 grand yearly membership. What was we just got? I missed the Eightfold Path. So for people for those, this is kind of funny. What did we just discuss before that though? It was the
Oh, we talked about the ego, and uh, we talked about, so what the heck is
it was
that?
to avoid. It was the four things or five things to avoid, and I can't remember the exact term.
Yeah. Um, so that ignorance was one. I'm going to look it up because I've got my notebook
Oh,
here.
beautiful.
First one. Um, the layers of life. Is that it? No, it wasn't the layers
No,
of life.
Doge.
It was
It's okay. You'll
the
find it.
duality. Duality,
No,
maybe?
we did talk about in the beginning, one of our first sessions, first few, we talked about duality, non-duality, remember?
It was the Kleshas.
The Kleshas, that's the word. See, like who's gonna remember that word, right? So as you can see, we don't like the terms, we're still learning and all that. But it's fun to learn. The Kleshas, yes. And if you have them there, actually, just for the interest of we spent 3 weeks on this, right?
We did, yeah. So there's ignorance. So the Kleshas are all about pain. What happens to you? Suffering is our reaction to something that's to pain, right? We are all going to experience pain, but we don't have to experience suffering.
Mm.
We have control. Suffering is optional. So the first one is ignorance. So mistaking the impermanent for permanent. So like something hurts you and you think, I'll never get over this. This is going to last me a whole lifetime,
Right.
right? Um, the second one is ego. And Justin, we had a fabulous conversation about ego. And I think we even did this for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Um, the ego that boxes us in and constrains us. So the things that we maybe hold true about ourselves that we don't have to. Um, how do we define ourselves? What are we obsessed with? And how do we let go of some of that?
And how do we use our
Um,
ego in a positive way too? With it.
that's right.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about that
Yeah.
too. And then there was, let's see, attraction, attachment, and aversion.
Attachment.
So, how are we attaching to things like our desires, right? I want to make $1 million, or I want a new house, or even, a new pair of shoes, and I gotta have it, gotta have it, gotta have it. Well, to what end, right?
Yeah.
And how are we suffering because we want that so badly? And aversion is what are we staying away? What are we staying away from? What are we avoiding that gets in our way? And then the last one, I think, is there's a different word for it, but it's fear of death.
Fear of death. Yeah.
And Yeah, it's like that. We're on a path of self-destruction, I wrote down. Um, our collective fear is our inner terrorism. So we're terrorizing ourselves. We're running so fast to get away from death that we're holding on to all these other things and not really experiencing a full and present life. So, I mean, like, wow, right?
Yeah,
These are big conversations.
they were, and the funny part is somebody, if you listen to the Enneagram episode on this podcast, I'm a 7, which is like I avoid like negative things. I just don't even want to talk about. Right? If it's negative, I don't. So I have to I have to actually get healthier, have a healthier perspective. I have to actually get into that part of me and allow myself to experience that so that I can. So anyway, I was in the middle of these kleshas. It's like, all right, guys, enough of this stuff we have to avoid. Let's go to the Eightfold Path, because these are the things that we have to do to have like a great life, right? Or to experience a great life. So let's stop talking. And then I think it was Liz that called me out. She's like, Justin, there's that thing. You just want to talk about all the positives. And I'm like, you're right.
This is great for keeping us on track, that's for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, having different personalities in there is really cool. Um,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah.
So thanks for sharing that. I'm glad you had your notes on you. That was perfect. That was
I
perfect.
know. I couldn't remember the word kleshas. Kleshas. 5 kleshas. Well, there's lots of numbers in all of this
Yes.
meditation learning.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the so as you guys can know, this is not like not as we talk on this podcast, a lot of this stuff isn't planned. It's just mostly conversations we have that lead to other things. And there's a proven point right there. Lisa had her notes in front of her and we talked about the Kleshas. So if you want to dive deeper, there's Google, right? Or take a class. Uh-huh. So the actually, if you have your notes in front of you, do you have the Eightfold Path in front of you?
Oh my gosh. All right. So the Eightfold Path. Well, we only did,
Oh,
I think we started. So the Eightfold Path is,
you don't have to like go into each category, just like the top, you know what I mean, the category.
all I have is the first of the Eightfold Path
Oh,
is the
okay.
right view of understanding. And that is understanding the Four Noble Truths. So we have 8 and 4,
Mm,
and then we have 5 kleshas. But the Four Noble Truths are life contains suffering. There is a cause to suffering. That's number 2. 3, there is a solution or an end of suffering. And 4, the solution is the Eightfold Path. So we have a lot more to talk about.
yeah, yeah, it's fun. Yeah, unfortunately, I missed it this week, which I'm not going to let
Yeah.
happen much again. So that's cool. Yeah, there's a book on the Four Noble the Four. Never mind. I can't remember what it was. All right. So, is there any Lisa? Is there anything else today? I think we've because we didn't start right at 2, so I'm not sure exactly what time we started. Is there anything else today that you think we should talk about or share that you've recently experienced? Actually, one thing I want to ask you: what is right now? Um, what's your favorite place to go, and why? To be some place to be or place to go and why?
And in nature, just getting out in nature, um, outside, watching the trees, watching the flowers. I love to be by water. Water feels really, really calming to me.
Hmm,
Uh, yeah, but feeling connected, feeling feet in the earth is good. It's really good.
cool,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
And
And
if you go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I was just gonna say, and if I didn't know if you wanted like to wrap up, but um,
I'll talk for 4 hours.
oh, well, I could do that too. Yeah. I think meditation is scary for a lot of people. And again, the thought that you have to sit, you know, for hours, is that what you thought of as meditation, or did you think it was like you could do it for 16 seconds and call it a
Oh,
meditation?
so actually, no one's ever asked me that, and that's never even like come up. That's interesting. What I thought meditation. Wow, that's how does that not come up yet? What I thought meditation was I thought it was stupid. Like I'm not gonna lie. Before I'm like, that's so like only weirdos do that, right? That's so stupid. Like, if, so I just never did it. I never even. I'm like, okay, I like, oh weird, you know. So and I was at this, but and I've mentioned it a few times. I was at the Tony Robbins event. It was 7 days, and he did a lot of meditations, and every single one of them, I wasn't into it yet. So I'm like, this is so weird. Everybody around me has like their eyes closed, and there's 5,000 people there. And I'm like, I don't know what the hell to do. I don't know what I'm doing. So yeah, that was interesting. It's a good question. I'm sure
Yeah,
a lot of people that feel that way too, right? And then once I realized that it wasn't stupid and that it was like one of the most impactful transformational things I've ever done in my life, I wish I found it earlier.
yeah, I wish I found it earlier too. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I thought you had to be like sitting quietly for an hour and uncomfortable and um, complete silence all around. One of my favorite meditations that we did was when we did that listening meditation. Do you remember that? And David G told us to, didn't we do this in our training? I think we did. He told us to like just be aware of what was the
Mm,
sounds that were around us. Um,
yeah.
that was pretty cool. It's like, well, I thought I was supposed to drown things out, not think and not listen, and it's just really hard to do. Um, the other thing I love that he taught us was that meditation could be things could happen in meditation. You can fall asleep, you can have thoughts, or you can find stillness. It's like, wow, there's options. And if I have a thought, it's not a bad thing. So yeah, that was really, really important for me to hear.
Yeah, that's great to say because yeah, you can have thoughts, you can hear sounds, you can, which is also pretty much a thought too. Your mind goes to the sound. You can fall asleep. I think I've done that
Yeah,
once or twice
yeah,
in
me too.
early mornings.
Yeah,
Laying down, I tried laying down and I fall asleep. I can't lay down
yeah.
every time. I'm like, okay, when you have a 2 and a 5-year-old and you work and life, you fall asleep when you lay down and close your eyes. It's like, okay, I guess I'm sleeping.
That's for sure.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm glad you asked that question because it have never come up before. And for listening, if you want to share, send me an email, justin@justinfrancisco.com, what you thought meditation was before you heard this or heard about it or practiced it. I'd be interested to hear that. When you were younger, or
Yeah.
if you could go back, I'm sorry, if you could go back and tell your 18-year-old self anything, Lisa, what do you think you would say to them?
Yeah, that was a long time ago. Um, a lot of things actually. Um, I would say just find center and just do you. The whole idea about having to be something or someone to be good enough, that's a big story for a lot of people. Um, and then the other thing is what's in your power to control. I use this all the time in therapy. I use it on my kids. I use it with everybody I know. What is it I can control is a very, very small amount of things, and really it's only about me. What I can control is all about me. All the things that I can't control, the worry, the stress, you know, the anticipation, the just sort of like, you know, holding on to so much distress. It doesn't serve us any purpose. It doesn't get us anywhere. We don't solve anything by being worried. If my child is sick, if my sweetheart is angry, if my mother wants me to do something, whatever it is. None of it is solved by worrying. If my child is sick, what do I do? Take him to the doctor, whatever the steps are. But I don't need to layer on all kinds of worry and how am I going to take care of this? And am I a good enough mother? If he's got a fever, I must, blah, 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 blah. The crap we tell ourselves. It's useless. It does us no good. It serves no purpose. That would probably be the number one thing. I spent way, 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 way too much time worrying about what other people thought and worrying about, how I looked and how I acted and what I said and what I did. And it's like, oh my God.
Yeah, just ruminating on that worry. I get it. That's, you know what? If you said that to your 18-year-old self, I think that she would never forget that, because that was good. That was well said. I think she would be scared to worry. So that's great. That's good. That's awesome. Thanks, Lisa. Okay. Well, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. That was so great to have this conversation.
Thank you. I appreciate the invitation and I enjoy your podcasts. I love your meditations. I love there's my buddy. Thanks so much.